Like, it's just like how she responded, man. Like, it's nothing. Like, I don't get anything done, even if you follow the rules. And just reading some of the case law, man. The case law and some of the cases, you read them, you be like, it's clearly the reason why he's going after this evidence. And y'all sitting here playing games about he didn't do this right or he didn't do that right. And he fouls the things he needs to foul. And it's like everything is tilted towards the police or the agency that committed the wrong. It's like the system's not designed for fairness. It's designed, if this is a big company or if this is the police, you can't go at them. You can't really say, well, this is what happened and give us the evidence to this. And they get to playing games. The court know they're playing games. And you write up an order for them to stop playing games. And the court just sits there like, well, they said they don't have it, so there's nothing we can do. There's a lot you can do. You can order them to give us the evidence, but it's not about that. It's about back and forth ping pong and allowing the police to win and you not get the evidence. That's the system we're in.
What's up? Good afternoon. The sun is shining, at least right now it is, so we'll see how long that lasts. We are coming out of winter slowly but surely into spring, so I'm happy about that. I'm not sure the word I want to use today. Like, I'm not sure if excited is an appropriate word for how I feel about the show today, but I am feeling a lot of feelings because I feel like it's really necessary, to shed light on so much that has been going on in Wilkinsburg specifically. I mean, like, this is not an issue that only happens in Wilkinsburg, but it is an issue. It's an issue that happens globally, but it is an issue that specifically it happens in a really unique way in Wilkinsburg, and that is corruption. Particularly when it comes to the police. So we have a couple guests on today speaking about a couple of circumstances where the law was not the law, like justice was not justice. But before we get into that, as always, we give love, honor, and respect to Leroy Powell. If you do not know, Leroy was 15 years old in 2014. He was a witness to an attempted murder turned infanticide. And he did the right thing and, gave witness statement, whatever. And at the preliminary hearing, the video of him giving statement was played, and our local media decided that it was a good idea to play this video of this 15-year-old minor child, right, and his mother on the 11 o'clock news that night. And so what we know happened immediately. The child got death threats, was threatened. And a few days later, he lost his life. Now, that was absolutely the fault of the media. Nobody was held accountable for that. Nobody. It was absolutely the fault of our local media because they did not care. They just flat out did not care. And so this child lost his life. So this is a reminder. I mean, the reason why the narrative justice exists at all is because of Leroy. In cases like him, media, like, there's life and death is in the power of the tongue, and media plays such a huge role in our safety, in our access, in so many different things. Like narrative, like our society is built on narrative, and this is how we're treated when you're Black. So it's important that we always hold media accountable for the ways they show up in our communities, for the ways they represent us, for the words they use about us to describe us, everything, right? like everything. Like it's not cute or funny when we're called monsters, like literally called monsters. Like I remember reading an article about a mother in Homewood, and they called this woman a monster, called her a monster, like a human being. That's what they call her, and that's what they do when it's Black and brown people. So we always have to hold them accountable every time. The COVID rent relief program is still going on. If you have not applied yet and still need assistance, I recommend you do that ASAP. I definitely recommend that you do that ASAP. You can do that online at covidrentrelief.alleghenycounty.us. The application process is pretty simple. You can do it straight from your phone or computer. If you need a little assistance or don't have access to the internet, you can go to any of the drop-in centers around Allegheny County. The Wellness Collective does host one of the drop-in centers at 335 Fifth Avenue in McKeesport, 15132. We're open 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on most days, Monday through Friday. Thursday is 12 p.m. to 8 p.m., which is really important because if you call or come down there before that, we're not going to be there. Love and light to everybody, but we'll get to you at 12. So on Thursdays, it's 12 to 8, but every other day during the week, it is 10 to 6. Also in the space, we have a small little food pantry. Shout out to Requiba Bay for providing food and Bugs, the Bugs organization, providing fresh fruit and produce. The community really loved it. It was in and out. So that was really dope. If you would like to donate to the food pantry, you can. If you'd like to grab from the food bank or food pantry, you absolutely can. We also have a little free store, some dope stuff in there. A lot of stuff for like babies and clothes, shoes, really decent stuff going on in there. So come, feel free to check it out whenever. You don't have to like register or sign up or anything. If you want to just come in and grab stuff, then come in and grab stuff. Self-care housekeeping is hiring wellness providers or care partners, as they're called now. A care partner is an in-home wellness person. I'm the founder and chief executive of Self-Care Housekeeping. Plug. We have grown in our demand over these years. I mean, we've always gotten a lot of great response across the country. Actually, we get requests across the country for our services because we're the only company that provides our services the way that we provide them. So if you are looking for a job and you are a compassionate person, have access to transportation, all that fun stuff, feel free to apply or reach out for inquiries. You can do that you can send an email to peacelives@selfcarehousekeeping.com. I need to slow down. If you are interested in inquiring about the position or would like to apply, please send your questions, your resume, and cover letter to peacelives@selfcarehousekeeping.com. I need to go to sleep. I'm done. I think that is going to be it for my intros because I keep jacking it up. Actually, no. Let me one more thing related to what we're here for today, right? Like police impact corruption in all things, like when the police show up in communities. I want to shed a little bit of light here on police or harassment by the state, utilizing the police to harm people. I know someone, I'm not going to speak too much on their specific circumstances because I did not get their their clearance to speak on it. But the folks essentially calling the police to harass somebody else and the police actually showing up to do so. This has been happening to a friend of mine last week and is continuing on today. I have spoke to them and as the police were being called on them yet again. And I called the police to file a report about, like, how do I file a report for harassment? Because this person is utilizing the state to harm this person. Now, I know at least at some point in time, you could not do that. Like if I was a domestic violence, if I was experiencing a domestic violence situation and I kept calling the police and they came out for whatever reason and found it to be unfounded, I would get fined. Now, that might have changed at some point in time, but I know it was the case at some point in Pittsburgh. So I was calling about, like, how do you file, a report against a person who is utilizing the state to harass somebody else? And the person that I spoke to, she said she was found me speaking on it. This is Nikki Jo Dawson. So Nikki Jo, who is one of our guests today, has been harassed by her neighbor for whatever reason. This guy has been stealing her packages, hers and her other neighbors. The neighbors know about it. The landlord knows about it. In fact, this person is being removed from the place because of his theft. And so she confronted him. or at least tried to, and then went about her business. Like that was the end of it. But he called the police and kept calling the police, saying that she took a hammer to the door, and all types of other wild stuff. The police shows up, super aggressive. She has a video on her Facebook, and you can watch it live. They came in super aggressive, cussing out her or whatever, and came up. And I don't know if you all have experiences, but I definitely have. When you call the police, or like like there's no reason for anyone to feel like it's an unsafe situation, that they show up with their hands on their guns. Like anytime I've called the police, they showed up to my house with their hands on their gun as if they're going to shoot me, which is ridiculous. And that's how they showed up to her house. But one particular part of that exchange, and like I said, it's on her page, and she can speak on it a little bit more if she'd like. But one particular part of that exchange is Nikki had said, like, I don't feel safe with you all. I would never call you all, like, because I don't feel safe with you coming here. I feel like I would be harmed even if I called you. And the one officer said that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. Christopher Tompkins was murdered in his own house in Homewood after he was burglarized, and he called the police, and they murdered him. Zone 5 murdered him in his own house. Don't say that doesn't happen. It does. It is that lying, like that lack of accountability and that gaslighting that we have to deal with, like over and over and over again, like that revisionist history when it comes to our experiences as Black people, right? Like when it comes to the police, like, so like there's never any accountability because they're quite literally just telling us like that didn't happen. That's not how that happened. And it's factually untrue. So that'll end my rant there. And I am going to actually go on to the show, but I wanted to make sure that I pointed that out because that was absolutely a lie. And again, you can check out the video of that exchange on her Facebook page. This is still ongoing. She's still being harassed. And when I called up to, I think it's Zone 6, Officer Morrison was super rude, kept lied to me about what the process was, tried to tell me that it wasn't harassment, contradicted himself. And then, told me that the way that you would file a report against her for harassment is I would have to wait until Friday. And then I think it was Tuesday when I called or whatever. I'd have to wait till Friday and go to the DA's office. Bruh, that's a lie. So yeah, definitely called his commander and told her, Kristen Zett. And I also am going to be filing a report with OMI because don't play with me like that. But anyway, that's enough of my rant. Moving on to the actual episode here. I am going to introduce our two guests, and I'm so thankful to have them, and thankful that they're willing to share their stories directly and indirectly, and definitely want to uplift and uphold the name of Randall Hockett, a young man who is being held by the state right now unjustly. So with that being said, I'm going to bring up Charles. Hey, Charles, how are you?
Let me unmute myself. I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Can't complain.
Good. I'm glad that you allowed me this opportunity.
Most definitely. I'm thankful again. Like I can't thank you enough for coming on and being an advocate for Randall.
Thank you.
Certainly deserves it, and it's certainly needed. So I'm not sure if Nick is. Oh, there she is. All right, Miss Nikki, are you here?
She's muted.
Let's see. I think there's something with her. But I can see you all. Okay. Nick, if you can, I'm gonna remove you if you can come back, or if you can leave and come back. Yeah, we can't hear you. Oh, there you are.
There she is.
Can you hear?
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
I can't hear y'all.
Oh.
I can just see you.
Okay. What are you able to leave and come back?
Sure.
Okay.
I felt like you said, hold on, go to the back or something. I can't hear nothing. Hang up. Oh, okay. I'll be back.
She's silly. Okay, so we'll get Nick back whenever she's able to log on. So let's start with you, Charles. Where are you from?
I'm actually from Belsuver, the neighborhood of Belsuver. Been here all my life. I lived out in California for a while, but Belsuver is my home.
Awesome. And my question was, how did you get connected with Randall?
Well, it's a very interesting story. Professionally, I'm a nurse practitioner. I've been a nurse practitioner for close to 40 years. And I was working at the Allegheny County Jail at the time. I was working in the medical department. And Randall happened to be on one of the units that we had to do rounds on, and they call them segregation rounds. And so I was making my rounds, and you basically go to the inmate's door and say, "This is medical. Do you have any medical, psychiatric, or dental issues that you need addressed?" And we just go from door to door. Sometimes they would answer, sometimes they would not. And I got to Randall's door, and all I could see was this face in the shadows in the back. The lights were out, and I asked my question twice, and there was no response. And so, like I say, well, let me just move on. And as I was walking away from his door, believe it or not, there was this feeling in my gut that told me to stop and go back. I'm not what you call over religious person, but I'm a very spiritual person. And I went back, and I eventually convinced him to come to the door, and he had tears in his eyes. This is a brother that was, he was crying. And I just said, "Brother, I don't know how I can help you or what's wrong or what I can do to make it better, but I can pray with you. If you will put your hand up against the glass and let me pray with you." And he put his hand up against the glass, and I prayed with him. And that was the end of that. And, when you're an employee at an institution like that, there's no fraternization. So that was the end of that. I just prayed with him. And interestingly enough, he's not even Christian. He's Muslim. And but he let me pray. And that just goes to show you, it doesn't make no difference what religion that you are. So I seen him in the clinic a couple times. We never really conversed about his issue. I would just ask him, "How are you feeling today? Are you feeling a lot better?" And I was a nurse practitioner along with another one. Regardless of what an individual does, I'm not at the jail to judge them. That's between them and their God. My job, I took an oath, is to provide the best medical care that I can possibly provide, given the tools that I have, whatever, at the jail. So the inmates had a respect for me because I respected them as human beings. We all make mistakes and we all fall. But unfortunately, we live in a society where people want to judge you if you've made a mistake and think that you're supposed to be there. And everybody in a red uniform is not a quote unquote criminal. Okay. So to say that, eventually I left the jail, and I get a phone call one day, and it's Randall. And I was on the defensive because my first question was, "How did you get my telephone number? Who gave you my phone number?" And I must have sound pretty stern, because he said, "I'm sorry." Everybody calls you Doc Chuck. "I'm sorry, but he didn't want to give up his resources." And he said, "I won't bother you no more." But he just sounded, he had that sound in his voice. And I said, "You know what? I don't work at the jail no more. Yes, you can call me." And the rest is history. He told me his story. He started texting me. I started doing research. And this was back in 2019, I believe. And we've been communicating ever since. And he's a young man. He didn't have anybody in his corner. And I've used some of our resources to help him find a lawyer and to get his case appealed, And so that's how I ran into Randall. I didn't know anything about Randall before I met him at the jail, but he's become like my sort of adopted son now.
Wow, that's amazing. That is amazing. And so thankful for the fact that something pulled on your heart to hold on, this kid needs something.
Well, God has people's paths crossed for a reason, I believe, and if that was my purpose for even being at the jail, then so be it.
Period. Definitely agree. Definitely agree. So thankful for that. So I'm gonna move on to Nick before we get into all of the things. But can you tell me what year this all happened with Randall?
His incident occurred in 2018, January 21st, 2018 is when the incident occurred. And then he had a hearing. I believe his trial was in 2019, and that's when he was convicted.
Okay.
And he got 43 to 87 years.
That's wild. That's wild. Also, that's my birthday, so that makes me feel bad. Okay. Thank you for sharing all of that. Nick, I want to jump to you. Thank you for being here. I know it's been a wild and crazy. I'm trying to get crazy out of my lexicon. It's really hard. But it's been a wild time for you the last couple of weeks. So thank you for taking the time out today. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. And Charles, we've never met, but it's a pleasure to meet you. And I'm just really grateful for you. I've heard bits and pieces about your story, so I can't wait to hear the whole of it, because this police department, I mean, we need to disband this police department like the East Pittsburgh Police Department. Like, it just needs to go. It's you don't keep making, these aren't mistakes anymore. You know, it's not like, oh, okay, well, they made a mistake, or they did these aren't mistakes. They know exactly what they're doing. And, you know, it's just the mere fact that we have to keep fighting the same departments, like, is ridiculous. It's I don't even know where to begin. I'm just so flustered with everything, with the weaponizing of the police. You know what I mean? Here in my home, you know, and I didn't even know if I was going to be able to do this from home. I didn't know if I was going to have to drive around in a car just to avoid the cops from being at my house. Like, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's
and Nick,
cops everywhere.
So before we get into the thick of things, I did mention, you know, what you've been dealing with the past week or so. Is there anything else do you want to speak on that for your own self, or do you want to move forward? It's up to you.
You know, it's I don't even know what to say at this point. I just feel like, you know, like you said, I have the live on my page. You could see they came to, before I even opened the door, they were on the BS and hands on their guns, and, you know what I mean, good cop, bad cop, and, you know what I mean, like, this whole role playing thing that they do. I bet they didn't show up to his house with their hands on a gun, talking about the pandemic is over, you know, talking about lower your tone and trying to police everything, my actions, my emotions, and then talk to me like I'm stupid. And then pretty much every day since, and that was just last week, they've been here. They don't come up to my door, but they come to his house. And he sits down, or just this morning, I woke up because I heard him yelling, or it's paper thin walls here. And I could hear him talking mess on me. Oh, yeah, and she's probably going to burn my truck and this, that, and the third. And I'm getting evicted this week, and now I can't leave on Tuesday, and all this stuff because of this bitch upstairs. And this is how he's talking to the cop. And the cop is the same cop who came that day, who was coming at me. He's like, it's crazy. He was like, dude, I hope you get to like a better place. Like, what? You're having conversations with this man who's been harassing me and threatening me and doing all types of crazy stuff, and you're talking to him like you're his homeboy. Like, he even parked in the driveway. He parked in the driveway, not on the street. He parked in the driveway and came in. I'm just like, what's really happening here? In his undercover car, not a regular police car. I'm just like, this is what I'm dealing with. And today they called the cops again. Like, I right before I got on, it's just like, you know, you take a risk when you move out into these type of neighborhoods, but you know exactly why I'm in this type of neighborhood. You know what I mean? And it's like, you ride through places like Bethel Park, Mount Lebanon, you know, and I just see these houses and these clean streets and everything, and it pisses me off. It pisses me off because I'm like, the caucasity of you to talk about race is not an issue, and everybody in this neighborhood is white. We're not afford, we still got to fight for water crises in Homewood. You know what I mean? We've got to fight against the police and trash not being picked up in Wilkinsburg. We got to fight everywhere we live in the worst conditions. And then these people just living up here like kings and queens. I mean, I have no problem with coming to gentrify your neighborhood. I have no problem with doing that. I mean, you do it all the time to us. So if my blackness makes you uncomfortable, if my presence makes you uncomfortable, and it clearly makes them uncomfortable, they have to keep calling the police. But that's how I know I'm where I'm supposed to be at. Because I'm not here to teach you. This is a reckoning. And you don't know how it's going to end yet. I don't know how it's going to end yet, but I know it's a reckoning. And I'm going to be placed, and I'm going to go wherever I want to go. There's not no white only signs here. Just because you put that in your redlining doesn't mean that I can't be up in here. You know what I mean? And it's not really a white neighborhood, but it's a white neighborhood in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like we've got a lot of, Latinx and, some sisters and brothers up here, but these Miracle Whip devils, I tell you, it's too much sometimes. But yeah, so that's what I've been dealing with today. So that's why I was a little late coming on, and I apologize for that. But yeah, it's just like, they just really do everything in their power to weaponize these cops against us, and the cops play right into it. There's nobody on that Wilkinsburg Police Department force, nobody on that police force who should be a fucking cop. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cuss. I said I was going to stop doing that on lives. But there's nobody who should be a cop in that department. Every single one of them are trash. Every single one of them.
What's interesting is within the past, 3 years, there's been 4 shootings of African-American males in Wilkinsburg. One, unfortunately, is dead, Ramir Talley, so he can't really argue his case. Then there was a young man by the name of Adams, who was wounded critically. Then there was Todd Robinson, who is still awaiting trial. And then, of course, Randall Hockett, who was shot and basically given almost a life sentence. But it's the cover up, the lies, and listen, it goes beyond the Wilkinsburg Police Department. It goes to the DA's office and the prosecutors, all the way to the judges who sit on the bench. It's all intertwined, and they're basically taking care of each other. But these injustices will continue. They continue, and it doesn't make any difference that they got a black police chief. And I say, shame on you, Mrs. Coleman, for allowing this to continue to go on under your watch.
Well, she's been afflicted with Negro-peanism. She knows what she looks like, but in her head, she's still got this European mindset. To call our kids terrorists, like, I don't know if she has children or not, but to call black children terrorists and to allow for people like Robert Gowans to remain in service and, letters of recommendation for him at other departments. I mean, it's something, I don't know if it's in the water in there. I don't know, but it's from the top down in Wilkinsburg, from Judge Hoots to Cookie Monster Coleman to Marita Garrett, who fled state, to the whole entire police department. It's corrupt. A bunch of Negropeans and Europeans who have the caucasity to continue abusing and murdering black people without repercussion.
Well, the interesting thing is that the police officer that shot Adams, whose last name was Duncan, he was awarded the 2017 Officer of the Year.
Duncan.
Award. Yeah, sorry. By the Teamsters Local Union 205. In the award announcement, the union published a statement written by Duncan that included his account of the shooting of Robinson and Paul Anthony Adams Jr., who Duncan shot and critically wounded, 8 months earlier. So it's like open season.
Duncan was there the night I got arrested, and I was actually almost relieved to see a black face.
It doesn't make no difference whether they black or not.
It sure doesn't. It sure doesn't.
And I think that's a misconception, Shannon, of people that look like us. They think if you have somebody that looks like us on the police force, everything's okay. No, that's not how it is.
All skin folk ain't kin folk.
Let me stop right there. Because, well, for one thing, yeah, that's absolutely the case, right? Like, and when people are a part of a system, I don't care who you are. Like, you're part of the system. If the system is violent and racist, then all your actions are going to feed into that violent and racist system. Like, that's just period. But I want to jump into, because I want to discuss your case, Nikki, and Randall's case through you, Charles, specifically. And because, like, there's a lot of overlap. And so as I was, Charles, like, you were nice enough to send me over those video clips of your conversation with Randall. And there were so many things that overlapped that he was saying that I've heard Nikki say in the 3 years that she's been fighting this ridiculous case that somehow happened, right? Like this absolutely insane case that she's been, forced to deal with for the past 3 years. Finally got, beyond it. So now she's in a place where she can actually speak on it. So with that, Nick, I feel like yours would be a little bit easier to chew on. Why don't you tell us what happened with you?
Okay, so this was back in 2019. The Reagan sisters were brutally beaten at the Exxon gas station by 5 alleged so-called men. You remember that? And Brighton and Marshall. So, we went up and shut it down. We, like not just like a couple of people, like the city showed up, you know what I mean? Shut down Brighton and Marshall. They owned the other Exxon on McKnight. So we went out there to shut that down too. I believe it was the second or third day that we were out McKnight Road. And when we left, I remember just feeling like, oh my, I'm so exhausted. You know what I mean? Like everybody knows, like I done stomped all over the city, you know what I mean? For the past however many years. I was tired, and I was with a friend. I'm sure he won't mind me saying, I was with Ahmed, and we went out to Wilkinsburg, and we were coming down Penn Avenue. And while we were passing Get-Go, I could see police lights up ahead. So we're getting closer. I see that they're in the parking lot of Wendy's. Right across from Wendy's is Sunoco. So we stopped in there to get gas and to record. He was going to get gas. I was going to start recording or whatever. So I crossed the street in the crosswalk. I have to make that known. Across the street in the crosswalk of Peebles and Penn. I go over. Now, mind you, I told you I'm very tired. I'm not saying nothing. I'm standing at this point 10 to 15, I say 10 to 12 feet back from the entire scene. Quiet, recording. Everything's cool. There were two officers. It was one car, 2 officers, and 2 brothers. And I'm just recording basically to let this brother, these brothers know that, somebody is here for you. You know what I mean? And the fact that one of the Wendy's employees, another brother, came out, not knowing who I was, gave me one of the, thank you because they had to work. So this happening in their parking lot, they're concerned because they're Black. So he goes back in. And then another cop car pulls up. This is when the officer who arrested me unlawfully arrives. Now, he knew from jump who I was, and I didn't know that he knew who I was. I don't know who knows, you know what I mean? Anytime I get arrested, it's always a shock to me when a cop will be like, oh, Nikki Joe's here. And I'm like, bitch, how you know me? You know what I mean? Sorry, not bitch. I'm trying. But, I didn't know that he knew me, but I knew it started to click when he kept harassing me. I'm 15 feet back at this point because this officer is in my face while I'm recording. Were you in the car? Doesn't look like I'm in the car. If I was in the car, wouldn't I be getting frisked too? I didn't say all of this, but I just said, no, doesn't look like I'm in the car. And he said, well, why are you here? And I pointed to my phone. Still didn't say anything. And he was like, well, do you know these gentlemen? And I'm like, no. He's like, well, you're obstructing the scene of a crime. How do you know it's the scene of a crime? A. B, what am I obstructing? Because the only thing that's being obstructed here is my line of sight because you're in it. So I moved to the right around the front of the car at this time, still about 10 to 12 feet back. The officers go on doing their thing. The redhead, Kester, the one who was harassing me, he goes over to his car and calls in all of these units. Now you can actually hear the cop say, I'm fast forwarding a little bit, when I'm in the back of a cop car and my friend Denise showed up, you can actually hear the cop saying the entire force is here for her. Why? I've done nothing. Rewind. Still recording. They decided to go through the passenger side of the car and check under the seats, glove box. They're ripping the seats, doing all this extra stuff that's unnecessary or whatever. Maybe it is necessary. I don't know. I'm minding my business. I'm recording. Again, I'm tired. I don't care what you have to say. I'm going to record. Here comes this redhead officer again, Kester. He comes up to me. What's your name? I ignored him. I asked you a question, and I said, I don't have to give it to you. He said, what is your name? I don't have to give you my name. Why are you here? You know why I'm here. No, why are you really here? At this point, now I'm so aggravated that I feel like I need to get away because he's going to cause me to do something that I'm going to, you know what I mean, regret, or it's going to get really volatile because I'm the type of person that when, as you could see in the video the other day, when the cops are called on me or when the cops are approaching me, like you said earlier, Charles, it's not, it's an anxiety. It's an anxious feeling because it's like when you're driving and you see those lights, you know, it's a different feeling when you're Black, when you're in this skin. So for me, I internalize that trauma of I'm about to be harmed, and it automatically makes me angry. And I knew that's where I was getting, because I'm like, I should not have to fear for my life just because you're here. And you should not have to lie and say you fear for your life just because I'm here. My Blackness is not traumatizing to you. Your whiteness and your authority and your so-called supremacy is threatening to me. So this officer is continuously asking me my name. Now, they lied in the courtroom and said, oh, we asked her 30 to 40 times to move back. No, because in the police report, and what you testified to, is that you asked me for my name 30 to 40 times and I refused to give it. So now he's up in my face. He's encroaching on my space at this time. So what I decide to do is leave. I'm going to go around the car the way I came and get the hell out. At that point, he says, now you crossed the line. What? You won't tell me your name. If you don't tell me your name, you're going to jail. I don't have to tell you my name. I know in Pennsylvania, I don't legally have to give you my name. If I give you a false name, then you can arrest me, but I don't have to provide you any identification. Well, where's your ID? I'm not giving you nothing. At this point, I'm so frustrated. I'm just trying to get away. He says, you got one more chance to give me your name or you're going downtown. I said, do what you got to do. He grabbed me by my hand, tried to put it behind my back. At this point, my friend had come over and I threw my phone on top of the cop car. So, you know, I had the recording as evidence. I didn't want the cops to do anything or my phone gets lost or the video magically disappears. So I gave it to him. They put me in the back of the cop car. Ahmed had called Denise. Denise shows up. I don't know. I'm sorry. I didn't ask permission if I could say their names. I know I made one of mine, but anyways, long story short, they take me down to the Wilkinsburg Police station. If you've ever been in that police station, the cells are far underground and there's no like offices or anything down there. There's just like this brown speaker box in the corner. And that's how I guess they communicate with people who they have held in bondage. So while I'm downstairs being taunted over the speaker with Sandra Bland, you know, things of that nature, my friends are upstairs with my father and the cops are telling them, oh, well, we're just going to give her some summary offenses or misdemeanors, you know, and she'll be able to get out tomorrow. They told them this, that they had no reason to arrest me, but they were going to give me some summary. So that's where the disorderly conduct for unreasonable noise, that the statute that they chose was unreasonable noise, which is hilarious because I said nothing. The officer actually got on the stand and testified that I was quiet and ignoring him. But you charged me with unreasonable noise. I was charged with obstruction, even though they were able to search the scene, do what they needed to do. I stayed 10 to 15 feet back at all times. And they charged me with jaywalking. I don't know anybody who's ever been charged with jaywalking, except for when I think about it, Tupac was, when they beat him up in Oakland. He got charged with jaywalking. You got to watch that charge, because even though it's like a misdemeanor, there's something about that charge that they put on us, and it feels like they give them the right. It's like, oh, we're walking off the plantation, so we're going to say you're jaywalking. So they hit me with these ludicrous charges, take me downtown. While I'm downtown, I catch COVID at ACJ. Had no idea because it's 2019. It's September. Actually, it was going right into October. Yeah, September 29th, 2019. I didn't know what it was. I just thought I had this crazy flu that wouldn't go away, but I caught COVID while I was in jail. So not only did you unlawfully arrest me because I refused to provide a name, and you charged me with jaywalking and a disorderly, which you could not testify to, and he did not. But now this illegal detainment has caused me to be sick for months. And the only way I was able to get out was not released on my own recognizance, but on a non-monetary bond, which I have no idea why they call it a non-monetary bond, because you have to pay at least $50 to get out. With that comes probation. So now, for the past 3 years, not only did I have to live through this pandemic and being one of the first people to catch COVID down at this janky ass jail because I was unlawfully detained, but now I got to check in every Tuesday during this pandemic when the courthouses are closed. So while the courthouses are closed, I still have to check in. And in those 3 years, I missed not one Tuesday because I knew that's all it would take for them to come and get me. And then because of my other case, they would revoke my bond and I would still be sitting down the county jail awaiting trial that they just keep postponing. I didn't want to give them that. So every Tuesday, I had it on my calendar on my phone. It went off as a notification, call and check in. Every Tuesday, I had to do that. Now, when we came to my preliminary hearing in Wilkinsburg, Judge Hoots only dismissed the false identification. And the only reason why she dismissed that is because if she kept that, the rest of the charges would have fell. How could you possibly arrest somebody for not providing a name? That's illegal as hell right there. So she throws that out and sends the rest downtown. So maybe we'll get her on a disorderly. Maybe we'll even get her on a jaywalking. Maybe we'll get her on this. For 3 years, I went through 7 different DAs emailing me, offering me plea deals. I'm not pleading shit. I didn't do shit. I'm not pleading to shit. Leave me alone. Now you're harassing me. I'm not taking this plea deal. I'll see you in court if we ever get there. While I'm in the courtroom, this just was a few weeks ago when we finally had the trial. While we're in the courtroom, the DA, this is now the 8th DA, I never met him, a little blonde-haired guy comes up and he's like, "Hey, where's your lawyer?" And I'm like, "He's right there." I knew he was going to offer him a plea. He did. While I'm sitting there and I'm looking at my lawyer and I'm just like, I'm almost getting frustrated at this point because I'm just like, stop talking to him because he's just going to keep offering you a plea, but he has to do his job. It wasn't his fault. He's doing his job. His job is to tell me, hey, here's another plea. Would you like this? This is all while the trial is happening. This DA is sitting here. Hey, we'll tell her, take a summary or this disorderly and this statute instead. And this, what? While the judge is on a bench basically saying, I'm throwing these out, he's still offering pleas. They want to get me on anything, any one thing. And I refused. So I turned down every single plea. And the judge had to judge according to the charges. What we did was a writ of, what's it called? I'm getting a mind blank. Writ of habeas, where you to quash it. I don't know. But anyways, I had retained the court transcripts from Judge Hoots from the Wilkinsburg preliminary. I retained those 2 weeks after I got out of jail, or 2 weeks after that preliminary hearing. In the preliminary testimony, Kester, the one who arrested me, testified that he wasn't even on the scene when I allegedly jaywalked. He testified that I was quiet and ignoring him, so there's no unreasonable noise. He testified that they were able to do a full search and seizure and everybody was good and fine. You testified everything that you charged me with, you testified against it. So I decided we just need to use this as evidence. Why even argue at this point? You know what I mean? I don't need to, and this is the same judge I got to stand in front of months down the line. I'm not arguing with, I'm not doing this. Just let the testimony speak for itself. I'm not going to testify to anything. And my lawyer did an excellent job defending those charges, even though he didn't have to, because the officer basically already told on himself. So the judge had no choice, whether she, you know what I mean, wanted to or not. She basically said, you could have charged her with something, but you charged her wrong. She might have gotten perilously close, is what she said. It could have been dangerous for me to record. Of course, it could have been dangerous for me to record. I'm a Black woman recording officers, you know, pulling over Black men. But I do that all the time. Anytime I see anybody Black pulled over, I pull over too. It's just common courtesy. I don't have to know you, but you need to know that you're not alone. I wish somebody would do that for me. Never have I ever been pulled over and I've seen another, but you know what? All in due time. We're not all there yet. You know what I mean? And everybody has their whatever. But the mere fact that they thought that they could just throw any charges at me and ruin my life for 3 years and that it was going to work out is beyond me. This is how corrupt this police department is. This is how corrupt the judge in Wilkinsburg is. This is how corrupt the chief of police is. Like, these charges should have never happened. And yes, they're not felonies, but I'm traumatized. Can you imagine being so tired, walking over, trying to just make sure somebody is safe and being detained and charged unlawfully and then getting COVID and then having probation and then being in a pandemic and then having to keep your mouth shut, not being able to speak on the trauma that you're going through from these bullshit charges, because anything I say can and will be used against me in the court of law. It's traumatizing. I'm still traumatized. And I didn't realize until I got out of court that day. I went to lunch to celebrate and I came home and I just broke down. Right now, I'm even getting emotional because I'm so angry that they're able to continue doing stuff like this to us. Like, you took 3 years of my life for what? Because you didn't want me recording you. You didn't want me to see you. And that's what my lawyer ended up saying to the reporters. I didn't know there was reporters in the courtroom. But after I seen the article, he even said, you know, they just didn't want her. You know, they knew who she was and they didn't want her. You called the whole police department. If there was a real crime happening in Wilkinsburg that night, they missed it because they're too busy worrying about what Nikki Joe was recording. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You ruined my life for 3 years because I pulled out my camera. It's for me, it's beyond. And that's why I have a lawsuit against Wilkinsburg Police Department. That's one reason. You're not going to waste my time. A, you're not going to illegally detain me. B, you're not going to put false charges upon me and put all these, articles, the media ran with it. For the past 3 years, I'm every kind of, you know, terrorist, I'm this, I'm that. You ruined my name, everything. And I've got other bigger, badder fish and battles to fight coming ahead of me. I'm not going to just allow you to just do this to me. They need to know that there's consequences for your actions. Absolutely. They need to know this. They got away with murdering Romir Talley. I'm still not over that. And that happened 2 months after I was arrested. And everybody and their mom is like, Nikki, you can't be out here fighting this battle. You're fighting the whole damn police department. It's dangerous. I knew it was dangerous, but at this point, I'm scared that this is going to keep happening. And this family hasn't gotten any justice. I'm still wear his shirt often. And I wanted to make sure I wore it for this broadcast because I want people to understand what happened to me is nothing compared to what happened to the Talley family. It's nothing. And I'm traumatized over the little shit that happened to me because it's big, but it's small in comparison. This family has not received any justice from the top down, from the DA to the judge, to the chief of police, to the entire police department, to the so-called, you know, allies. You know what I mean? Like, this department is so corrupt. The things they get away with. I don't see this. I don't see how we've allowed this to continue happening with this police department when it was so easy to shut down East Pittsburgh.
Now, I want to, well, for one, I definitely want to, acknowledge and send love to the Talley family. Tasha is so strong, and she shouldn't have to be. Like, no woman should even know that they are that strong. No person should even know that they have that strength inside of them, because I could not imagine being her. Her, Dana, all of their family they've been fighting. But literally, Wilkinsburg, almost as a whole, has been fighting against them. I mean, and doing super violent things. I mean, from before y'all even went up there and protest. And if anyone's not familiar with that, we did a podcast early on with Nikki Jo and several other people, so you can go back and watch that. But before there was a protest, there was already contention, right? The mayor was avoiding and evading conversation with the family, was not trying to give information, all types of stuff. Like, they were planning both Cookie Coleman, the police chief, and Marita Garrett, the mayor, were planning to not have a conversation and not address the public about Mayor's murder. And then after the fact, right, the protest itself was super violent. Marita waves a gun at everybody. Her mom attacks somebody. Nothing happens. Like, her mom physically assaulted someone in front of the entire Wilkinsburg Police Department, and nothing happens.
Can I say something about that right there?
Yes.
Because when we talked about it the first time on your podcast, I definitely that was very wild and harmful. And people need to understand that, because we in the Black community love to eat each other for some reason. And a lot of our people had a lot to say about us rolling up on Marita like she doesn't deserve to be held accountable too, sis. We've been coming to you for over a year and a half for some transparency, sis. When your office knew the entire time that he was still working there and not on desk duty, sis, this is a problem. And we didn't roll up on no rah-rah. We came real quiet. Up in her Black Ridge white neighborhood, we came real quiet and peaceful to talk to her, sister to sister, only because she didn't show up at a meeting that we already had scheduled. So I needed to put that out there. It wasn't like we just decided, oh, we're just going to pop up on her. Like, we love to make house visits. That's like one of our staples. But, because you can't hide if we come to your home. But I need people to understand that she specifically declined to come to her own council meeting to, answer to these grievances against this Talley family and her lack of transparency. And that's the only reason why we went to her house. Now, if we were all white people who came to her house, that gun would have never came out. She would have never waved that gun. She would have never been that bold. And that's what pisses me off about these Negro pens. They get a little white man and get a little authority in their room, and they think, you know what? I don't have to respect my people. You gonna learn today, because my Black skin is just as Black and beautiful and bold as yours, sis. But guess what? I love you enough to hold you accountable, because this mother is grieving. She lost a son. These children lost a father. And then to learn that his father was also cut down by what? This is like beyond, it's just beyond disrespectful at this point. And I feel like it's our duty. It's not our duty to educate white people about their racism that they created and influence and still continue out today. But it is our duty to check our brothers and sisters. Accountability is love, right, Shannon? Accountability is love. I didn't have no beef with Marita. I just wanted her to converse with the mother. Let her know what's going on with her baby. That's all. And you want to bring a gun out? Now we have a problem. And as far as Marita's mother smacking the little girl, like, I'm sorry, that part is sometimes you just got to stay in your lane. And that's what some of these white allies do. They think Black women were handling that. Black women were handling Marita and her mother. And Black women Marita's mother's age were handling that. There was no reason for that little white girl to run up in there and think she could talk crazy to a Black woman. You want to be a supporter and accomplice? When the police run up on us, that's when you put your body on the line. Don't go running up on no Black mama. Yeah. So I can't even be mad about her mollywopping her for that. I really can't. But
I got to disagree. I mean, I heard the response that everybody had, and all right, I wasn't there, whatever. But
she ran up on her, Shannon.
She was doing what people do in protest. That ain't, that don't
come on. Like, there's all these Black women there. And in the front, trying to talk to these two Black women. You just gonna wiggle your little Ally, isn't her name Ally?
Ali. If it wasn't two black women and she did that, would nobody think no different? Like the girl was
exactly.
But I'm saying,
don't run up on black women.
But I'm saying, like the girl was doing what people do. I don't think that gives her mom the right to put her hands on her. She could have said anything, and quite frankly, y'all could have stopped her if it was a problem. But I don't know, man. Like if I'm in a protest and I'm doing what I came here to do, like advocating for somebody who was murdered, and you put your hands on me, we scrapping. Like, let's go.
And I get that. I get that. The only thing is that like we were there, the allies knew what their position were. You were supposed to hold signs and chant. You weren't supposed to run up on, this is a grown woman, a grown woman. Mm-hmm. I mean, she's in her 50s or 60s, and you ran up on her when there were grown black women there trying to speak to her. To me, she became an antagonist. She became one of those provocateurs who come in there to stir shit up. We're surrounded by cops, and you thought it was okay to run up on the mayor's mom, a black woman. And there's nothing but black women. Anything could have happened. And if I feel like she put my life in danger.
I mean, that's
so. I'm sorry. I'm not saying that it was right, but was it wrong?
It was wrong. But I feel you. Like I'm a like I said, I wasn't there for the planning. I wasn't there for like this is what everybody's role is. I was not here for that. Personally, I think that a person being attacked, especially by the mayor's mother on her own property, like the girl wasn't trying to put her hands on her. Like you were not threatened at all. Now, also, I want to say I am no fan of Allie. I think she's trash as a person. Well, I ain't gonna say that. I don't think but the way she
you do say what you mean.
But you know what she did, like the way she handled that and the stuff that she was doing and the way that she was white women in it up. I got major issues with that. But
and what she did to us at the council meeting, me and you.
That's what I'm saying. Like, and beyond that, she was doing like wild stuff. Like, right, like I can say all that and hold that. Like, she's a wild person. Like, I'm not too concerned about her as an individual. However, as a person, as a civilian, and I'm a part of this group of people trying to hold the system itself accountable for murdering a person, and I ain't put my hands on nobody. I ain't break no laws. I didn't do anything to make anyone feel like their lives or their bodily, safety was threatened. And you put your hands on me in front of all of the police? Nah, like there's nothing. I can't make sense of that. But
okay, I'll say this and I'll leave alone. Okay. A tiny measure in Allie's defense. I feel like maybe, all those black women were, speaking with Marita's mother. She didn't put her hands on none of them. So maybe she felt, I'm saying, but
right there giving it to her.
Look, I'm almost 40. I'm going to get 58 real quick. I'm outside. There's cops and my daughter's there. There's a whole bunch of black women. There's, back and forth banter and yelling. And then here comes this little white girl up in my face with a camera talking about, you need this. Okay, so this isn't your fight, Allie the ally. This is why I say we don't need no more allies. We need accomplices. We don't need, we support you. No, because you get out of your lane. There's a role for everybody in the movement. But white people specifically have a lane that they think that they can cross because they have black friends. It's not okay.
And that's the thing, like the backpedaling after the fact, and this is how, she wasn't an accomplice at all, because she could have done, there were very specific things that she could have done if you were really a part of the movement, and she chose not to because she just wanted to hold some sort of control over something. And wasn't so, I'm definitely not, look. It was calm only because y'all told me to chill, Shan, and cool, whatever, because I'm not concerned about that little girl. However, I just don't think that it was okay that the woman attacked her. That was enough.
And I respect your feelings. I do. Mm-hmm. And that's just one thing that we disagree on, but it doesn't mean I don't respect how you feel. Right. And, and you're entitled to feel that way. If I was Mama Garrett, I would have mollywopped that bitch up and down that cul-de-sac. But that's just me.
And to your point, shout out to Miss Renee, because Miss Renee was handling if you want to fight somebody, how about the woman that's snatching your wig?
She wanted all the smoke.
Shout out to my boo.
Shout out to Sister Renee Wilson. Love you, sis.
You love her all day and all night. Miss Renee is not the one to play with at all.
At all.
Our people, period.
At all.
After you pull a gun on folk, then what you think is
where do you go from there? Except to North Carolina. Ain't that where she moved?
I don't know nothing about nothing. I don't know nothing about nothing.
I don't know. I just know, she wouldn't have, if we were white, that would have never happened. I believe that in my heart of hearts. I feel like some of them Negropeans feel like it's okay to treat us any type of way. Like they treat us like we're 3/5 of a man.
Well, it would have never Romero would have never been shot and murdered. So
period. Right.
There would be no reason to be there. But I want to digress. Like we got into that space, but just pointing out like all of the things, right? Like all of the things in Wilkinsburg and the corruption, right? And that specific experience, like I said, like from the time that, first of all, the time that Romero was murdered, there was a statement that was put out immediately from Marita's office, which I remember reading.
Yeah.
So I didn't even think anything of it because the statement literally said like it was justified, like they already it was clear and cut, and that was the end of it. So I was like, all right, well, whatever. Until it came to be a year later, and now all of a sudden there's a protest, like and be very clear, it's a bunch of women that I love and know, right? Like in community with, are going protesting at the house. That was when the first time I even knew that this was a thing, because again, when I saw the press release that this was justifiable homicide, I ain't think nothing of it. The meeting was canceled due to COVID, and that wasn't true. Came out that Cookie and her conspired and lied, so they didn't have to face y'all.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all went up there. They knew that she said that she knew that y'all was going to come, and it was going to be a conversation. Why are you waving a gun, sis?
It was a conversation.
But how you show up with a gun and you said that you anticipated.
Shannon, how many home visits have we made in just the time that we've done multiple home visits and to white people's house, cops, district attorneys, council people, police chiefs. Never once has any of those white people pulled out a gun on our black bodies. But your black ass, and you too beautiful and black to be just out here disrespecting us like this. Look, you're supposed to be on our side. It's always sitting here threatening us with a gun.
It's always painful when it's our own folk. And Cookie right in the background pulling the strings. From what we're told, sabotage Mike Johnson's run for mayor, and now Marita 2.0. Anyway, we're gonna take that because we are veered away, and I want to make sure that
sorry,
Randall.
Sorry,
but thank you for taking the time. So so that was Nikki's situation. Nikki had to go to jail, deal with all of these things, and a bunch of stuff that seen and unseen throughout this whole circumstance that Nick had to deal with for the past 3 years, because she recorded some folks being, searched by the police. Literally did nothing. And the trial, proved that. Did nothing. Nothing at all. It should have never got to Cookie. It should have never got to the judge, but it should have
never left Wendy's parking lot.
Period. But they kicked it down the road for 3 years.
And that's just 3 years of my life that I'll say one more thing on this, and I'm sorry, and I'm done. The reason why this really hurts me, aside from all of the stuff I listed, when I think about how many people in this past 3 years who have, I'm offended all the time. That's not who have purposely and intentionally tried to put me in a situation where I felt like I needed to be physically combative to protect myself, or knowing that anything I do, if the cops are called, I'm going to jail. That is traumatic as hell. And I don't think that people really take into consideration when you're on paper and you're waiting for trial and you've got a non-monetary bond or released on your own recognizance, or maybe a $20,000 bond or whatever, you really have to sit and, I learned, what's that called? Not patience. I don't have that. What's it called? Where you have to learn to calm yourself down.
Meditation?
I don't know. It's a word that I'll think of once the show's over, but I had to learn some type of self-restraint, and situations where I would usually buck, I had to sit. And I was being disrespected so deeply by some people that I would have never let this stuff pass, but that is what I was facing. I'm like, do I really want to handle this the way I want to handle this situation? Or do I want to let this law get their hands on me again and have me sitting down here and maybe get COVID again and not make it out of there? You know what I mean? Like, that's traumatic in itself. So I want people to understand when I say the trauma that I endured, it wasn't just making the phone calls and probation. And, it's a really mental trauma when you think about all the things that you could be sticking up for yourself. You could be defending yourself, but you're so worried about them getting their hands on you again. That's a lot. Mm-hmm. And that's all I got to say about it. And that's why they're getting sued. You're not just going to keep messing with Black mental health. I'm fragile. It's not happening. So I'm fragile like a bomb, not like a flower though, So, and that's it for me.
Well, thank you for sharing all that. Randall, if you wouldn't mind sharing what's going on, or Charles, if you wouldn't mind sharing what's going on with Randall, like what landed him in prison.
Okay, well, on January 21st, 2018, there was an incident at his residence on Clark Street, 1810 Clark Street, in which there was, I guess, a Spotify saying shots fired. But the police responded, and without getting in a whole lot of detail, his house was being broken into by somebody, and Randall was not the perpetrator. His girlfriend and another person that was at the house had actually written a sworn affidavit that they would not even be allowed to be presented to the jury. Judge Sasinoski was the judge that sat on the bench, and this whole trial was like a big farce. It's like they said, okay, because Randall represented himself. All the public defenders that was assigned to him, they kept wanting him to plead guilty, and he kept saying, Mr. Chuck, why should I plead guilty to something I did not do? And so the preliminary, he was defending himself in his trial. He defended himself. And unfortunately, he was railroaded, and he wound up getting 43 to 87 years. And he was the one that was shot. Okay.
Charles, you're muted.
How much did you get? Did I just mute myself?
He was the one that was shot.
Oh, yeah, he was the one that was shot. As Randall came around the back of the house, they just started shooting. He said they never said, stop, put your hands up, da-da-da-da-da. They just started shooting. My theory is they shot this man, so they had to justify shooting him. So they concocted a story saying that he shot at an officer, John Snyder. Well, the interesting thing is all the records, the dispatch records, everything shows that John Snyder wasn't even on the scene at the time. So at the preliminary hearing, okay, there's a officer, Lori McNeil. Okay, she's a detective. She said that it was an Officer Adams and Stanger, and she brought charges against Randall for them. And then there was a Patrick Canalvi that shows up at the preliminary hearing without those two officers and without Lori McNeil, saying that it was John Snyder. And John Snyder told him it wasn't Adams, but it was him that encountered Randall in the back of the house. Meantime, all the evidence shows that Randall's shoe prints was on the side of the house. So the dispatch record showed that Snyder did not get on the scene until after the Edgewood police officers and after emergency medical services were called. And you have the district attorney who actually lied, saying that Wilkinsburg did not have any dash cameras, did not have any intersection cameras. And then later on it's found out that this evidence did exist. Now, all this evidence was in front of Judge Sasinoski, and he just disregarded it. He did not, Randall, as a matter of fact, subpoenaed Detective McNeil, but she never showed up. Adams and Stanger were never there. The only person that was there was Snyder, and all this is hearsay. There was no concrete evidence. There was no gun resin on his hand. If he had shot at Snyder, where was the gun residue? Now, Randall does admit that he had a gun in his front pocket that he had retrieved from a gentleman by the name of Ray's when they were tussling, when Ray's was trying to get into the house. Okay, and he dropped the gun, and Randall retrieved the gun, and that's why he came out. He was going after Ray's, but when he came around the corner, that's when the police were coming. Where Ray's went, I have no idea, but they just started shooting. Randall was shot 7 times. Okay, he mostly got shot in the chest. They revived him twice in the hospital. He said he died twice at the hospital. But like I said, they've just been railroading this guy. Now, he had an appeal that he just submitted, but the way the system works is because he had represented himself. All this appeal is like mute. Whatever happened at the preliminary or before the preliminary, he can't submit now. It's all mute because he's been convicted by a jury. So that doesn't make sense to me. If there's evidence out there that proves this man is innocent, why can't it be brought forth? We hear all the time. How many times have we seen recently on the news about these men that have spent 10, 20 years, 30 years in jail for crimes that they did not commit, only to find out that they've been exonerated and they were innocent at the beginning? So what? Randall's going to have to spend 10, 20 years in prison before somebody looks at this case thoroughly and see that he did not commit the crimes that they accused him of. You know, and like, so he got 43 to 87 years. Now, from what I understand, mandatory sentence, let me see. He was charged with, here, the district attorney, he was charged with several counts, but they withdrew the 2 counts of attempted homicide. So he was charged with assault on a law enforcement officer. And the minimum period is 20 years, the maximum is 40 years. So count 3, he got charged with assault of a law enforcement officer. Count 4, assault of a law enforcement officer. Again, minimum sentence is 20 years, maximum is 40 years. And then it says count 12, firearms not to be carried without a license. It was a big sham. And like I said, we never hold the people that need to be held accountable. And that goes from the police officers who lie and cover up to the DA's office. Now, Zapala, he has a reputation, and we can keep talking about Zapala all day long, but it's just his whole department. And then the judges that sit on the bench. Judge Sasinoski, yes, I'm calling him out because he knew what he did was wrong. This young man's life matters. 43 to 87 years, he's 36 years old now. That's a life sentence for something that he did not do, and he didn't kill anybody. He didn't hurt anybody. He is the one that was shot. So you tell me where the fairness of that is. I have written all types of politicians, Fetterman, other people, I'm not going to mention names. They contact me quite frequently for donations to their campaign. You know, but I never get any response when I write letters to them about this young man's case. And we have to be realistic about the way things are. Our local politicians aren't going to get involved with stuff like this. It's not going to benefit them. They're not going to jeopardize their career and advancement in their career over one young black man. But this happens too often. Why do we continue to let this happen? We get out there and we protest, but I believe people get protest fatigue. They'll protest for a while, and I believe the system says, okay, go ahead and let them protest. They'll get tired of protesting eventually, and then everything just falls by the wayside. You know, I just want people to know who he is. I want them to know his name, and I've been trying to get some traction with the media, but me and you talked earlier, the media is not going to really do a whole lot either. Now, there is one, matter of fact, I know of one young woman that was writing for this newspaper, and she almost lost her job for publishing certain things. And now they're just very, very careful. And I've been corresponding with one young lady who works for media. She had did some research. All 3 of the officers involved in Randall's situation have charges against them in the past. You know, for use of force. Now, Randall has a lawsuit, which I don't want to go into too much because he's in litigation for use of what is it called? Deadly force. And so he has a lawyer who's working on that, but something needs to be done. Something needs to be done. He has an appeal in, and we just got a judgment back, and they had stated something about because he had waived his right, I guess, during the preliminary hearing by representing himself. All those situations from the preliminary hearing he can't bring up anymore because that's mute. I don't understand that lingo that they use. I contacted his lawyer, but they'll keep appealing and appeal all the way up to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court if need be. But this young man, he has gone on 5 years now. Okay, he started out at Allegheny County Jail, then they took him to Smithfield, then they took him to SCI Camp Hill, and now he's at SCI Albion serving out his sentence. But I can't even imagine with that over my head as a young man, something that I did not do, and it's like nobody really cares. Nobody's doing anything, and what do you have to look forward to? So he's a very intelligent brother. Seriously. There's so many brothers and sisters that are incarcerated, and we have no ideas of their intelligence. He's done all this research on his own. He's written all these appeals on his own without the assistance of anybody. And he's gained a lot of headway, but now we finally have him some lawyers, and I'm just hoping if the media gets a hold of this gets some media attention, and this story gets to the right people. The only person that contacted me out of all the people that I wrote was L. Sharpton's group, National Action Network. And they had put me in touch with some other people, but none of our local officials have contacted me and talked about this issue. And Wilkinsburg, they have a track record. We talked about it, 4 shootings in 3 years. Adams, I told you about the young man Adams, and he was critically wounded, but because he pled guilty, okay, he only got 6 years. But Todd Robinson refuses to plead guilty. He's still waiting for trial, but basically he has a life sentence facing him. Randall Hockett, who refuses to plead guilty, 43 to 87 years. And unfortunately, Ramir Talley is not here to defend himself against the lies that were told about him. So the Wilkinsburg Police Department needs to be held accountable. And people talk about African Americans in positions of power. It does not make any difference. Shame on you, Sheriff, or what is it? She's the police chief, Coleman. Shame on you for allowing this to continue to happen under your watch. And she doesn't want to answer nobody's phone calls. She doesn't. One of the reporters kept calling her, and she had the nerve to say, "Why do you keep calling here talking about this? I don't want to talk about this." They don't want to discuss it. They know that there's something wrong with the system. So how do we fix the system? I need to get with you, Nikki, to organize some type of protest about what's going on with the Wilkinsburg Police Department. I want people to know Randall's name. I want them to continue to mention his name. I don't want this to be put on the back burner.
You got my full support. This is the first time I'm hearing about this, brother. You have my full support, and it angers me that this brother was shot 7 times, like Ramir, survived after being resuscitated twice,
right,
and is in prison for assaulting an officer.
But he didn't. Yeah, and he didn't even. Right, he's in prison, and he didn't assault. The officer's not hurt. He didn't assault anybody. He didn't pull a gun. And matter of fact, there's a statement in the transcripts where Officer Snyder said he never saw Randall pull a gun on him, and the other officer said the same thing. It's in the transcripts.
Then you can get the lawyer should know this, but that's exactly what we did with mine. The court transcripts from the prelim, the officer testified that basically everything they charged me with wasn't true. So you can use that to put in front of a judge, and they can rule just on the transcript. But
Well,
it's getting in front of the right judge too.
well, see, the thing of it is now, and I don't know how the legal system works, because he has been convicted by a jury now. You know, how does that work? They're saying that he can't go, those things that he should have brought up or appealed before his hearing, he can't do now.
That's a
That
lie.
doesn't make sense.
That's what they tell us. But white people do it all the time. They'll get convicted for something, if ever they get convicted for something, and then they'll come back with the evidence from a court or a preliminary. It's totally possible. They make us think it's not possible. And brother, I have to say this because I'm worried. There is a red dot that keeps showing up on your forehead.
Mine?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You know what? Because I've gotten involved, Randall has even said to me that he was worried because I'm speaking out. But see, I'm not afraid. You know, no weapon formed against me shall prosper.
Okay,
You know,
but do you have like a little laser or something there in your computer?
Oh, are you talking? Are you serious? I really?
Yes, dead ass.
Like,
I'm worried.
It's moving around your face.
Are you serious? I thought you was talking to. No, I don't see anything on my forehead, but there's something on my forehead.
It comes up, but it's like moving around. I just figured there was something in your space.
Maybe in your laptop.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do we need to roll up? I mean,
no, hold up. Listen, I still have my Christmas lights up.
You know what? This is why they talk about us. It is February. What, did you keep them up for Valentine's Day?
But I like the design. It's nice.
I'm over here having a mini heart attack. I'm privately chatting Shannon like, what's going on?
Yeah, like on my ceiling. You know, what is
oh my God.
That you put in front of your house, the spotty light. So I got them in my living room. They're on the ceiling. So they, when you turn the lights out, it has a nice effect.
I'm over here scared for your life.
I thought you was talking about the police coming after me with a.
Oh, bad.
I'm in a very literal red dot. On your face.
There's a red light.
Oh my God.
So that's what it is. It's the Christmas lights.
Take down that tree.
The tree's down, but I still got the lights up.
That's why they talk about us.
All right. Well, now that we clarified that no one is
sorry, I'm gonna go back and mute myself now that he's safe.
Charles, I want to ask. Now, you know, so Randall was charged with assaulting an officer or something doing something to the officer. Was anybody else harmed? This Snyder, was he harmed at all?
No, nobody was harmed except Randall. And then he was given the go ahead to sue the Wilkinsburg Police Department, the chief, and the police officers involved, and but the judge, the Superior Court judge that gave him that go-ahead, it's like she keeps tying his hands, won't allow him to get evidence. There's evidence in the evidence rooms. There's his jacket, his hoodie that he had on. Now, Snyder says he encountered Randall in the back of the house, no shirt on. Randall, there's evidence showing Randall's footprints on the side of the house, and his hoodie is on the side and leading up to the trail of blood. So, you know, there's a contradiction in Snyder's statement. And again, all records show that Snyder wasn't even present at the time.
I want to pause you right there because you sent me that video and I have a few of the clips. Now, I'm going to post the full video on all of our networks so people can watch it in full. But here's a clip regarding the burden of proof.
What the system is, we'll sit back and allow these things to happen. And regardless of what you do and how right you are, we're never going to side with you or give you what you want. We'll give you hope, a little taste of hope, but we'll never side with you. We'll never give you that. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing what's wrong with the system. You know, there's judges and there's people that know, like Sasinoski. You have evidence, not from me. You have evidence from them saying that this officer I'm convicted of was not present. He's not present. And it's put before you to sit there and say, oh, well, yeah, these are dispatch records. It does show that this officer did not get on scene until 1 minute and 36 seconds after the alleged shoot. And hold on, there's merit here. Hold on. You have to come, Commonwealth. You have to come with something to show that this officer was indeed present. He's produced physical evidence, these dispatch records showing that he's not there. So you have to come with something. You have to show me something. Put something before this court. But that's not what happened. Of course, that's not what happened. We're going to brush that to the side. We're going to proceed to trial.
And like I said, like, you know, thematically, right? Like there are things about Nikki's case and Randall's case, and it sounds like several other folks' case that you know, I spoke to that are very similar. It's like, here's all your evidence. Okay. But we're in this downtown though. And that's what happened.
And that's why they're holding him. I'm sorry, Shannon. What Charles, you were saying about they keep blocking him, giving him permission and then blocking him. Just that clip, right? That's why he, like you said, it's because he's intelligent. It's because he knows what he's doing. It's because he studied the law. It's because they know he's a threat to their lie, to uncovering their lie, that they're like, oh no, we need to put roadblocks up every turn. Like, you know, if he was just somebody who just like let it happen and be like, well, this is what happens, you know what I mean? They wouldn't, you know what I mean? They wouldn't be hiding evidence, wouldn't be, it's crazy. The amount of evidence that they have, that he has, and they're not allowing him to present it because he was already convicted by a jury. That's not even, that doesn't even sound, is that legal? Isn't that like, is that legal that they can do that?
I don't know. I'm trying to do some research. They just posted. Matter of fact, if you go on Google and you put in his name, Randall Hockett, the judgment just came down. It's called Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus Randall Hockett, Superior Court of Pennsylvania, February 2nd, 2022. And it talks about the decision that they made. And I don't understand a lot of this language because they use language that lay people just, it's like, are they speaking a foreign language? But it does say at the end here that his sentence, okay, it says, accordingly, we conclude that the appellant's challenge to the sufficiency of evidence at the preliminary hearing, it says, became mute upon conviction. So when he was convicted, it became mute, but it says that judgment of his sentence is vacated and the case is remanded to resentencing jurisdiction relinquished. In other words, it appears that the appellant's sentence does not include credit for any time served. Accordingly, we vacate the appellant's judgment of sentence and remand for the court to determine what, if any, credit for time served appellant is entitled to. But it sounds as though they don't agree with his sentence. But 43 to 87 years is ridiculous. And he is the one that got shot.
I'm sorry. Where did you read that from? They just basically said that they were in disagreement with, they were vacating his sentence.
That's what it sounds like to me.
But it sounds like the sentence is, now we just talking at this point, but it sounds like not the conviction, like
right.
For the conviction, it's just for the sentencing.
Right. Not the conviction, just the sentencing. Now, will they give him a lower sentence? And, you know, I sort of wonder if he had have gone along with the court who always wants you to plead guilty to something that you did not do, whether he would have gotten this type of sentence. It's like he was punished. Okay, brother, since you so smart and you want to represent yourself and you think you know so much, I'll show you. And then Judge Sasinoski just throws the book at him. This is a young African-American male with a whole life ahead of him. And you're just going to snatch it away.
I know why. They feel that, oh, okay, you remember back in the day, Mr. Charles, being called an uppity N-word?
Oh, yeah.
If you knew too much, if you
and
were too smart, if you were this, if you were that. What they are doing is basically, and I know this because it's so ironic that you say this. I was pro se. I was representing myself. When I walked in the trial for the Wilkinsburg case, the judge, I signed all the paperwork, waived my right to counsel, all of that in front of the entire courtroom. And a lot of people who are watching this probably remember that day in front of the entire courtroom. She basically refused to allow me to represent myself, said that it was almost like they see it as comical and like an insult. How dare you think you can come into my courtroom and represent yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Use one of my lawyers here, but don't come in here and represent yourself. She basically stated, like, she didn't say it in those words, but she basically stated, she tried to make a joke of it. Oh, I've had people come in here many times before, they want to represent themselves. And she was like, think this over, basically, type thing. And I'm going to give you a co-counsel. That's how I ended up getting my lawyer. I had a lawyer, but I fired that lawyer, and I was representing myself because I wasn't getting anywhere with that previous lawyer or whatever. Irrelevant. Point is, they feel like it's an insult for you to come in and be an uppity N-word. How dare you be knowledgeable about our laws that we created against you? That's what it sounds like they're doing to him.
No, it even says that that he had the opportunity, that he had fired several lawyers and decided to represent himself. It's in here somewhere. I thought I had highlighted it.
Because they probably weren't hearing him. They probably weren't listening to him. He's probably saying, no, this is how I feel. This is what I...
Indeed, appellant who dismissed multiple court-appointed attorneys and represented himself at various points during the pre-trial proceedings, as well as at trial, acknowledged his understanding of his right to file an appeal from the court's interlocutory order denying his petition. And it says something about appellant stating that if the court denied his petition for habeas corpus, he can still appeal this matter, and the Commonwealth agreeing that the appellant could file a interlocutory appeal, which I don't know what that means, but it's basically saying that from the court's denial of his pretrial motions and the court's informing him that we observed that the appellant did not raise the argument before the trial court. However, we agree with him that it constitutes a non-waiverable challenge to the legality of his sentence. And I believe that's why they're not agreeing with the sentence, but because he didn't, he waived all those rights, I guess, but I don't know. I'm not a lawyer.
It's because he refused their lawyers. Now, not all public defenders are bad, but we know public defenders are overworked. They have an extreme amount of cases. Exactly. I got lucky when she made my lawyer co-counsel. She was like, well, I'm not going to let you do this. Basically, you're going to have Frank Walker. Bet. I love Frank. I know Frank. Cool. He's an awesome lawyer and an awesome person. And I know he actually cares about what happens to me. So Randall probably didn't have that feeling with any of these he probably was like, you don't care about my case. They were probably stumbling, messing up details. I could see why he would have fired them. That's the reason why I fired any of my lawyers, because they weren't hearing me. And I need somebody, if you don't fight for me as hard as I fight for my people, you got to get the hell out my way. I'd rather defend myself and go down than be represented by somebody who does not care about my life, about the value of my fight or anything. And I guarantee you that's why he fired those lawyers. Right. So the lawyers he has now, was he able to pick them, or were they
actually we did some research, and the one lawyer that he has now came by highly recommended, and I reached out to that lawyer and I put him in touch with Randall, and they discussed it, and so Randall decided to go with him. Right. And this lawyer that is helping him with his civil case, we did the same thing, and she just emailed me recently that, hold on, let me plug this in. She just emailed me that she's going to take his civil case. So, like I said, it's been a long road, and it's exhausting. I didn't think it would be this exhausting, but I refused to give up. And I just told the brother, listen, man, I'm not going to abandon you. You know, like he's even said when we've talked, you know, like, you know, he just feels bad, and he's afraid because he just said everybody else has abandoned him. You know, like he was in court defending himself, and there was nobody there, family, friends, nobody that he could look to for support. I can't imagine how that would have felt. And then when he got he got convicted. I can see why he was standing back in that corner by him. Can you imagine how that would feel? You're all alone with nobody, and they just threw your life away and told you that you have 43 to 87 years and you have no recourse. You have nobody to fight for you.
That's horrible.
But he, you know, like I told brother, I said, I'm going to help fight for you, bro. Mm-hmm. And so I got a good lawyer, and he just told me that they're going to continue to appeal, even if we have to go to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. But I'm not going to give up, and I hope Randall doesn't give up. And then, like I said, we have this civil case against the Wilkinsburg Police Department, the police officers, and the police chief, Mrs. Coleman. You know, but
you keep giving her too much respect with the Mrs. Coleman. Call her Cookie Monster. But I'm so grateful that you've been standing by his side. Like, I mean, that's got to mean the world to him. And when we get done with this, I would love to have his lawyer's information so I can hold them accountable and make sure that they're doing what they need to be doing and hearing him. Maybe his information.
Yeah, we have to exchange information because, for sure. You know, like I said, we need to just keep the fire under Wilkinsburg Police Department.
What?
Now, I don't know.
Like Wilkinsburg Police what fire? No, I'm kidding. Jokes. I don't want no more lawsuits, no more charges. Jokes.
You know, I was sort of hesitant to even do this podcast initially, but I had to follow my gut feeling because I started thinking about my reputation, my job, and with the system, how they'll look at, am I going to put my job in jeopardy? Because I fought for the inmates at the Allegheny County Jail, that's how I lost my job down there. She's gone now, deputy warden, somebody that had no medical background, but we were always at odds because I seen things that the inmates were treated horribly, and I always protested, and I would do things that they said that they didn't want me to do, but it was still in my job description. And I guess she figured when I got COVID at the Allegheny County Jail, yes, I was an employee down there. I didn't say that I had COVID. I didn't say that I had got it from there. But when Brenda Waters did my story, she said he's not only a well-known actor in the city, but he's also on the front lines working as a nurse practitioner at the Allegheny County Jail. So they got me saying I violated their social media policy by telling my story as a Black man that I had COVID, because I brought it home and I gave it to my special needs sister. And I felt so guilty because I didn't have any symptoms. She's the one that developed the symptoms, and I had to take her to the emergency room. And that's how I found out that we had COVID. But I actually, I had worked with some patients down there, and I had to catch it from there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's beyond unsanitary. I mean,
beyond.
Oh my God. Even it's just
So Charles, I want to ask, and to echo what Nikki just said, thank you for standing with Randall. To be erased as a human being, to be, put in a box, especially for something that you did not do. I couldn't imagine what that's like. I could not imagine what state he was in prior to you two meeting. So thank you for all that you have done and all that you are doing. I'm thankful for that. I want to ask, at this point, because now we all know, what Randall is going through. Now we all know what has been done to him. How can, the community at large, support him in this time? Is there anything that you can think of right now? Or
I would like for your podcast for people to share this so it can go maybe across the country and somebody can see it. Because, I hate to feel this way. It just seems like nobody in our community with any political clout or power seems to really care. But I want the people to keep his name alive and continue to fight for him, for his freedom, for his freedom. And a brother by the name of Todd Robinson, the same thing, the Wilkinsburg Police Department has continued these atrocities for how long? For how long? And like I said, poor Ramir Talley is not here to fight for himself, But he's gone, and the other two people that decided to fight for themselves, they said, well, we'll get rid of them. We'll give them life in prison. Maybe they'll go away. But no, Randall's not going away as long as I'm alive.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I want to point out, like, all of the lawsuits, right? So Nikki mentioned, pursuing a lawsuit against Wilkinsburg. Also, Randall, pursuing his lawsuit, but also want to shout out Paul Jubis, who also just announced a lawsuit against Wilkinsburg Police for corruption as well. And I want to shout out Allison Calloway, who also announced her lawsuit against Pittsburgh Police for harassment after she named the fact that Robert Gowans, the person who murdered Ramir Talley, was then working in Pitcairn and Pitt Hills, which is how we knew publicly that he was there.
Is he still there?
He was removed from Penn Hills, and then he was reinstated recently.
Mm-hmm.
Hills. So again, like, we never are safe, right? And when she named him, because she didn't feel safe when he was working for the paramedic, and he showed up at her house. She has a daughter who needs medical attention, and he showed up at her house, and she said she didn't feel comfortable with her daughter riding with a murderer, like, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. And since then, she's a young woman, business owner. They've been harassing her. They've been harassing her business. They've been plaguing her with falsified charges, all types of wild stuff. And it continues still. And Pitcairn is a small, privately owned little town. But I will absolutely shout out about Allie, is that she is not one to play with. Like, she's young, but she is nobody's joke. So shout out to her for continuing to stand up not only for herself but for other people. But I wanted to name and note all of these lawsuits coming specifically to Wilkinsburg, but generally, right? Because it's wild that we have to do it, but I am also thankful that we are doing this, right? Like, instead of sitting back and allowing it to happen, allowing ourselves to be bullied and beaten into submission and erased off the face of the planet, that there is fighting back happening, right? Like, there is pushback happening because we need to do that. Their accountability has to happen, and it can't come from anybody else. It's not going to come from anybody else. It needs to come from us. And the last thing I want to note is that, to your point, Charles, the unknowingness around Randall's case. I had no idea that this happened at all until you reached out, right? Matter of fact, the first thing I seen, I think you had posted it in our Facebook group some time ago, and then reached out after the fact and talked about you coming on the podcast. Had it not been for you, I would not have known. The media, like our broadcast media, our legacy media, they're not on our side. And unfortunately to say, that is the case. Like, that is the case. So we cannot continue to give our attention to legacy media and begging them to care about us, because that's what we do, right? Tag, WPXI, tag, whatever. I mean, cool, do that. But if they cared, if it mattered, they knew before you knew.
Right.
And they chose not to post, they chose not to deal with it. They chose not to. But what happens with this podcast, and what I will say is, we've had a level of respect. I'm small potatoes, baby. I ain't nobody. But it's when people care about what's happening. This podcast has been very effective in, forcing change and creating awareness, galvanizing support. A lot of great things have come out of it because we've been sharing it as a community. Like, don't pay attention to these folks with these so-called systems. Like, what makes a system is the people under it. And the people under it is us. So if the system does not care about us, we don't have to care about it either. So as to your point, Randall, definitely, folks, share this episode, share Randall's story, share his story, look him up, and hold Wilkinsburg accountable as a whole, hold Pitcairn accountable as a whole, the DA's office as a whole, as I forget which one of y'all said, it's not just him, I think it was you, Charles. And I also want to note, lastly, and I will always bring this up, we had an opportunity in Allegheny County to have a new DA, and it was sabotaged by our own folk, quite frankly. Shout out to Ron Jenkins. He should have been our DA. And even with the sabotage, right, he pulled still 41% of the vote. Don't nobody want Zapala in office. Don't nobody want Zapala in office. And so I want to say, and I will continue to say, that level of self-sabotage Like the lack of foresight, like cost us lives, literal lives. Randall's life, Nikki's life, like, and so many other people, Romir's legacy, and so many other people that we know and we don't know because. So anyway, off my soapbox. With that, thank you both so much for taking this time out. I know we were here for a bit, but like these are big stories, and I didn't want to chop it down because again, these are really, it's your lives, right? Like Nick is your life and it's Randall's life. Thank you everybody who tuned in for this extent of time. Please definitely do share the podcast, share these stories, like, you know, support Nikki's lawsuit, support Randall, like support Charles, like make sure that we're supporting each other. And we're always holding media accountable. They are not our friends at this moment. Like they are not, you know, but if we start to hold them accountable, then we can coexist in a way that we're not being harmed regularly. So with that, is there anything else that you all want to say? Nick, I'll start with you.
Again, Charles, I just thank you so much for holding this brother down. I never knew anything about his story, never knew anything about his situation until today. I appreciate you so much. And I got your number now. Definitely going to get with you to do whatever I can to raise hell and holy water at the same time. Shannon, thank you for this platform because, like you said, the media is not our friend. I always said, you know how I like making acronyms for everything, but the media stands for the most evil devil in America. And it is important to have our narrative. And that's one thing that you have always not just given to me, but given to the people as a whole, like in this city and wherever you go. I just know that you're going to continue to, if not speak for us, allow us to speak for us because we don't get that platform. You know, we've got connects. I'm sure you've got connects, Charles, and different with KDKA or WPA. We got that one that we think is, but it's never enough. And if we're and we need to stop tagging these stations and these posts because they don't care. Because if you go to the comments, you can see the racism unfold. And it's important. And I appreciate Shannon mentioning the system. You know, it's only a system because of the people under it, which is also why I started spelling it CIS for the male cis, but that's a whole nother thing. But just thank y'all both so very much for allowing me to speak my truth. Every time I get to speak about it now, I feel a little less traumatized. So thank you for that. It's really healing. And I can't wait to hit the ground running with you for Brother Randall. And that's all I got to say.
I just would like to thank you both. And I'm so glad that I had an opportunity to connect with you, Nikki, and hear your story because I wasn't aware of that. I was aware of that initial incident that hit the news a couple years back, but I was not aware of your particular situation. And I'm so glad that I've been enlightened. And Shannon, thank you for this platform. I just wish we had more platforms like this, particularly in our community, because like you said, the mainstream media will not tell our story, will not allow our people to tell our story. It's time, you know, injustice for one person is injustice for all of us. And I tell these politicians, particularly politicians of color, hey, listen, it could happen to you. You know, if you have a son or a daughter of color, it can happen to them. Just because you're a politician and you may be in somebody's pocket or whatever, does not mean it cannot happen to you. We have to start holding ourselves accountable also for things not done, letting this continue. This is 2022, and our young men and women are still being lynched. Maybe not by a tree, but they're still being lynched. When is it going to end? But thank you, Shannon.
Shout out to Ed Gainey, first Black mayor of the city of Pittsburgh. And I had to say that because we do have a lot of Negro peons in these seats that aren't doing anything for us. And Ed is a real one. And I've supported him from day one. And I'm going to continue to support him because I know that brother is going to actually stand on his word and not just do everything for, you know, publicity or whatever. He genuinely cares. So I needed to just plug that right there. Thank you, brother.
I have to shout out to Ed also because Ed is always there. Every function in every community that I have gone to, Ed has been there from small neighborhoods to big neighborhoods. Ed has that social media where he talks to us every morning. And
Yes.
that's something totally unusual. And Ed's a down to earth for real brother. I seen him, I just seen his action before he even became mayor.
Right.
He was always there in the forefront with his loud voice protesting certain things. So yes, thank goodness we have a mayor like Ed Gainey.
Yes.
With that, we will cut out today. So thank you all again for joining us. We'll be back next week, but definitely if you want to support Randall, Nikki, any of them, like you can reach out to me and I'll make the connects. But otherwise, like they're both on social media. If you like, I'm going to play the outro as usual, but I'm also going to play a couple of clips from the video from Randall as well after the fact. So if you're going to stick around for that, you can. The full video will be posted on all of our social medias as well. So
share it, people. Please share it.
Please
this
share
brother needs help. Please share it. And share this live or this show also.
For sure.
Thank you.
Who Judge Sasinoski said that overruled?
I mean, yeah, Judge Sasinoski, that's what he did. He didn't do nothing by the book of how he was supposed to do it, according to what the rules state. Once you challenge the evidence, the burden shifts to Commonwealth for them to prove that this crime did in fact take place. And of course, the judge did not shift the burden. He just said, okay, well, we're proceeding to trial and forget any evidence that they might have. And there's nothing that shows that this officer is present. So as it stands, I'm in jail, convicted of a crime I didn't commit, with overwhelming evidence that should shock the conscience of any system. The evidence shows this officer's not present, so how am I convicted of a crime against this officer? How?
So the jury never went to the jury then? They never heard about that?
Well, the judge didn't allow that to get introduced.
Are you serious?
He didn't allow me to introduce the dispatch records to the jury for them to make that competent decision. And on top of that, the district attorney, he just lied about the intersection cameras, the dashboard cameras. That would have showed this officer I'm convicted of was not present. I mean, what you gonna lie for? You gonna lie to cover something up. If the evidence exists, you're gonna say it exists. And we do have this evidence and we're gonna provide it. Raquel's the officer who wrote the complaint. And she stated it was officers Michael Adams and Joshua Stinger. We get to the preliminary hearing. Hold on. She also swears that, everything that she's talking about is about everything she's put in the complaint she swore to under penalties of perjury. So we get to the preliminary hearing. She's not there. Detective Canavi's there. He's supposed to be the lead detective. And he states Sergeant John Snyder told him that it wasn't Adams, but it was him that encountered me in the back of the house. And he was shot at. Now, when we get to the dispatch records, that's after the preliminary hearing. I point this out to the judge. I say, look, hold on, time out. there's evidence that came about that shows this preliminary hearing, they never established a prima facie case because Lori McHale wasn't present. She's the one that wrote the complaining affidavit saying it's Adams and Stenger. We get to the prelim, Snyder shows up and a different officer who has basically nothing to do with the case, who didn't write the report or anything. And John Snyder gets introduced, and then it turns out he's not there. So with this evidence put before the judge is like, all right, well, what? I mean, I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. You know, if I say it's not him, then the case is thrown out. So we got to proceed with this case. And this is why the evidence and everything else never got introduced. He knew what he was doing.